you've ever struggled with breathing during running, you want to listen to this. Personally, I've had exercise-induced asthma as a teenager where I had to reduce the amount of cycling that I was doing because every time I tried to push harder, my body just decided to stop. But what I learned was that my one exercise-induced asthma is very controllable. I actually don't have a pump, and what I have to do if I get it is I have to reduce my intensity and I have to relax because a lot of it is emotionally involved. However, recently I was at the Arc of Attrition and quite a few runners really struggled with their breathing because of the intensity of the cold going through their lungs. And this can happen to a lot of people who have asthma or have a little bit of asthmatic kind of tendencies, which they maybe never knew about until they ran in cold weather. Here are some really top tips for this, which I would encourage you to do. First of all, asthmatic type conditions is when your lungs and your all your kind of areas, they constrict and they're really tight. But what also happens is that the air is actually like blocked or dead in your lungs, and the main aim is actually to get the air out rather than in. But when we're struggling to breathe, we want to breathe in more because we want more air and oxygen. So what I'd encourage you, if you start getting a little bit of tightness in your chest and start to wheeze, focus on long breaths out and then a few short breaths in. So what you do is a little in and then long out with what we call pursed lips. So that helps with like a negative pressure into your lungs. And if you have like 3 or 4 seconds out and short 1 or 2 seconds in, it focuses on breathing all that dead air out and then a little bit in to get back in again. The other thing you can try and do, and it depends on how you manage things, is to warm the air. So if you have a bath, you can pop it over your nose and your mouth to try and warm the air. Some people find it a bit claustrophobic, but that's another way of doing it, is just to keep that air warm so it won't be as cold when it goes into your lungs and constricted as well. Also, if it is a bit emotionally involved or intensity involved, reduce your intensity if you're able to for a little bit, get back your breathing, relax, know that you're going to be okay, and then continue from there. But those are my top tips for if you're starting to get wheezing in races. However, I will have this with a caveat. If you are in races and there is medical assistance available, I'd strongly recommend that if you are struggling and it is getting worse, you definitely consult medical at that stage. Do not just continue on if you're finding your breathing is worsening or you really are struggling to breathe. This is for something that is maybe light, that once you've tried a few breaths, it does ease off and does change. And if this continues, you may need to consult your GP to look for maybe getting an asthma pump or inhaler to help you further. So hope that helps. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you've done to help with this.